Hey everybody, Austin back again with yet another long play video. This time we're going to be taking a run through Mega Man on the 8-bit Nintendo. Now, for those of you guys that have been following me for a while, you know I've done quite a few long plays on the original 8-bit Nintendo Mega Man series. Mega Man 6, after this one, I think is actually the last one I have to upload. And for those of you guys that have been watching my channel for a while, I've actually already recorded that one as well, so expect a Mega Man 6 long play in the near future on top of this Mega Man 1 long play, as well as the old Mega Man 5 long play I just uploaded a little while back. So, Mega Man 1 is the very first game in the long-standing Mega Man series. Now, this game is probably still a personal favorite of mine in terms of 8-bit Nintendo games. It's the most unique out of the first 6 Mega Man games. Well, actually, technically, it's one of the most unique in the entire series because it does a couple things that you really don't see in later Mega Man games. For one, you have a score. You get points and so forth for killing enemies. You can pick up these little gems or balls or whatever you want to call them. I don't know what the actual name is for them, but they also calculate at the end of the stage depending on how many you picked up, and you get extra points based on that. So that's pretty cool. That adds definitely a twist to things. So if you're trying to play this game for a high score, you can, and you can't really do that in other Mega Man games. So it's kind of an incentive to kill enemies in this game, whereas in later Mega Man games, it's just you could skip all the enemies if you want to, and there's no detriment to that. So, but there is also a couple enemies in this game that you don't find in later Mega Man games, such as the guys there that were just throwing the hammers at me, the little construction guys, as well as those little green bobbly things with the helicopters on their heads. Those guys I don't believe are in later Mega Man games, at least not in the first 6 Mega Man games. I think they do make a reappearance maybe in Mega Man 7 or Mega Man 9 for the Super Famicom, but I don't remember 100%. But yeah, Mega Man 1 definitely does a few things differently. Again, even right here, the hallway to the boss is much longer, and they put enemies in there and so forth, which is pretty cool. So, you know, while I didn't really enjoy playing through Mega Man 5 all that much to do a long play, I had a blast playing through Mega Man 1 again. I love this game. It's a great, fun Mega Man game. It's very straightforward. It's very to the point. The level design is, it's not amazing, but it was the first, and as such, it still feels good, and it doesn't feel like beat into the ground like some of the later Mega Man games do, where they're just rehashing things over and over. I mean, this was the first one right here, and everything still feels kind of fresh, even though there's been a zillion Mega Man games after that. If that makes any sense, then, well, I hope it does, but it makes sense to me. But yeah, I had a blast playing through this long play, or recording the footage for this long play video, and yeah, if you haven't played the first Mega Man game, I highly recommend checking it out. If only to see how far the series has come, or basically to see its roots. Because again, this is the very first game in the series. You know, yeah, it was just the very first game in the series. Capcom at the time probably had no idea if they were going to even continue the series. And from what I understand, the first one, at least in America, didn't even perform all that well. It wasn't that popular, from what I can tell. It's not the rarest game out there. It's not gonna, you know, it's not hard to come by. It's just, apparently it didn't perform as well as some of the other ones, especially Mega Man 2 and probably Mega Man 3. And but this one, ironically, will cost you a little bit more than the average Mega Man game. I think it's probably the most expensive one on the system, especially if you buy it complete in box. So that's something to keep in mind if you want to actually track down a real cartridge. But that could either be due to the quality of the game, because it is a pretty awesome game in my opinion, but it could also be that it didn't sell quite as well, and so that combined with demand makes the naturally the price a little bit higher than some of the other ones on the system. But I'm kind of all over the place already. Normally I wait till halfway through the video to start trailing off on random tangents, but I decided to start that at the beginning of the video this time. So but yeah, we're on Bomb Man stage, and you know, in this game, I don't really play in any particular order, except I usually avoid Fireman and I avoid Elecman first. All the other ones I might play just, you know, depending on whether which order I feel like it. Usually, though, I will do either Cutman, Gutsman, or Bomb Man stage. Gutsman is a good place to start because it's got those platforms at the very beginning. If you're trying to kind of perfect your run, if you die at those tricky platforms, you can just hit the reset key and start fresh without, you know, losing much progress. So that's something to think about too, especially if you're playing for a high score. But yeah, aside from that, I don't really usually have any kind of, you know, set plan when I come into this game. And that's usually the case for any Mega Man game I play. I don't, you know, Mega Man is a series where when you beat a boss, you can steal their weapon, and each boss in the game has a very specific weakness to a certain other boss's weapons, and I don't really play with that in mind. I prefer just playing with my, I believe it's called the Plasma Shot, which is basically your normal Blue Bomber suit. It's, well, they call Mega Man the Blue Bomber, but basically your stock weapon is how I like to play the game. It's a little more challenging than just, you know, using the boss weapons to your advantage. And it makes it a little more exciting in my opinion, especially years and years after having already perfected the game, to where, you know, once you get really good at a game, really familiar with it, it can get boring, you know, and that's how it goes when you learn games. But, you know, not using the Robot Master's weapons actually makes it more interesting. Now, I do use the Robot Master's weapons in very certain situations, like I will use Cutman on Elecman, because Elecman is, he's a pretty tough boss, and likewise with Fireman. Fireman is pretty tough as well, so I'll use Iceman on him. You know, the funny thing about Mega Man 1 is that a couple of the bosses are just ridiculously easy, and Bomb Man here is an example of that. Cutman is another, Gutsman is another, but a couple bosses are also pretty damn challenging, unless you're really, really damn good and precise and on point. And that is Fireman, and that is Elecman. Elecman especially, because he bounces all over the place and his shots are very large and tough to dodge. So that's kind of an interesting thing about Mega Man 1, because the other Mega Mans in the series, you know, most bosses can be had with just your standard, you know, shot if you're patient, and the bosses aren't usually as tough as some of these guys like Fireman and Elecman. Of course, that's just my own humble opinion, and you know, you might have trouble at some of the bosses in the later Mega Man games, like maybe Shadow Man in Mega Man 3, or Quick Man in Mega Man 2 is one that usually gives me trouble without using Flash Man's weapon on him, and but Mega Man 1 it's kind of interesting in that regard, where it's got multiple bosses that are just, you know, kind of challenging if you don't use the Robot Master weapons on them. And you do die a lot faster in this. The bosses, they do a lot more damage to you, especially Elecman. I think he can kill you in like 3 hits or something like that. It's pretty crazy, so that's another reason why I might use Robot Master's weapons on bosses like Elecman. But for the rest of the game, I prefer to generally use my standard weapon, and it makes things more interesting and more fun in my opinion, like I said. And most enemies can be killed relatively quickly, either with a nicely placed timed shot, or just by pummeling your enemies in rapid succession, because you can shoot pretty fast when you're close to an enemy. So we're already on Cutman stage, and you know, to be honest with you guys, this is probably the shortest Mega Man in the entire series. There's only 6 main Robot Master bosses, and there are only 4 Dr. Wily stages. Now yes, you do go to Dr. Wily's stage, just like you do in any other Mega Man game, but there's no map screen that's shown there, and the Wily stages are much shorter. However, they're arguably more tricky than later Mega Man Dr. Wily stages, or Mega Man 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 Wily stages. The Wily stages here in this Mega Man are actually kind of tricky, sort of, and especially when you get to like the Doppelganger boss fights, you know, things like that. It's and the last Dr. Wily stage in this in particular meshes a couple of sort of shticks from early on in the game, several elements like the sort of moving platforms from Gutsman stages make a reappearance as well, and I'll tap into that a little bit more once we actually get to that part of the game. And that actually leads me into one other thing I wanted to mention before we get too far into this video, is this is not a perfect run of this game. Actually, I don't really think any of my Mega Man long plays are perfect runs, except for Mega Man 3. yeah, I didn't die in the Mega Man 3 one, but I'm pretty sure I died at least once in every other Mega Man long play I've done. And that includes this one as well. Now, the first 6 stages I did pretty well, and but I ended up dying a few times on Dr. Wily's stage. I don't remember if I died on the first few stages on the Wily levels, but I do die in the very final Wily stage, and I think I die like 3 times or something like that. So yeah, this is not a perfect run, but overall, if you want to see to the end of the game and you want to see me use some Robot Master weapons on very specific bosses on the Dr. Wily stages, then you know, you'll basically get what you're looking for. But yeah, this is not a speed run, this is not a perfect run. This is just me playing the game, as usual, to the best of my ability. Well, not really to the best of my ability. I could have played this game better, in my opinion, but you know, if I die once, if I die twice, maybe 3 times, sure, whatever. You know, it's just something I'll have to live with, because, you know, it does take time to record these playthroughs, and, you know, I'm an adult, I need to have some kind of a life, and I've got a lot of things on my plate in terms of, like, YouTube videos and just other hobbies and stuff like that, so it's like, I'm not gonna record this game 10 times in order to get a perfected playthrough. So I think dying a few times is fine, as long as I'm not dying every 2 minutes, because that's just completely unwatchable in my opinion. There's a lot of Let's Plays and long play videos out there that are like that, and I really can't and really don't understand how people can watch something like that. Even when there's commenters talking on it, and I mean, I don't know, maybe it's funny once every now and then, but I definitely cannot watch playthroughs like that. So I hope you understand where I'm coming from that. But this long play shouldn't be as bad as that. I do die a couple times, but it won't be to that extent, is what I'm saying. But it's not a speed run. I'm not it's not tool assisted or anything like that. It's not to impress you. It's just to get through the game, and so I can talk about it at the same time and reminisce and all that good stuff. So. And if you've been watching my channel for a while and watching my long plays, you already know that. I have a tendency to kind of regurgitate just things and themes and things to say and so forth in my long plays, and yeah, that's just how I do things, I guess. So we are now on Elec Man's stage, and again, I'm just kind of like bolting through this game. The first Mega Man is one of the ones I'm the most comfortable with. Whereas Mega Man's 5 and 6, I'm, say, not as comfortable with, because, you know, I didn't really own those games as a kid. I rented Mega Man 5 once as a kid. I had it for a weekend, and I beat it a couple times. And that was the only time I played it until after high school, I think, once I started collecting Nintendo games again. Mega Man 6, I only knew one friend that actually had it. I never owned a copy for myself until, again, after high school when I started collecting Nintendo games. Mega Man 1, on the other hand, along with Mega Man's 2, 3, and 4, I owned as a kid. Actually, I'm not sure if I actually owned Part 2, but I knew so many people that had it. No, I think I eventually had Mega Man 2. I probably bought it when I was a little bit younger. But Mega Man 1 was one of those games, one of the earliest games actually, I tried buying with my own money as a kid. And now, by the time I bought it, the game was long off store shelves. You couldn't buy it in stores anymore unless there was like a used video game store. But I didn't even know about used video game stores back then. The concept was just very new to me. All I knew was Kmart or something like that. Wherever my mom bought video games, or going to the mall if there was a video game store. And actually, I don't really think we had any dedicated video game stores around here at the local mall until, you know, I was in middle school and high school. So back in elementary school, I had, you know, it was like summertime or something like that. I would go around the neighborhood going door to door and asking people if they had any chores they needed me to do, or if they wanted me to water their plants or something like that. I remember having a lemonade stand at the top of the street for a little while, and it was all to buy this damn game. And other games, but mostly it was this game. And yeah, so Mega Man 1 I did have as a kid. It wasn't, I didn't get it when it was brand new or anything like that. It was You know, this was probably after like even Mega Man 3, so this was after like 1990, probably 91 or 92 when I did this, and yeah, I eventually had this game and I played the hell out of it. So yeah, back to the point is that, you know, I had this as a kid, so I am very familiar with this game as opposed to some of the later Mega Man games. Now, I am still familiar with those later Mega Man games, just not as familiar. For those of you guys that's, you know, well, this is something I bet a lot of you guys can relate to, is that there are games you're probably really, really good at and really, really comfortable with, and that you don't really have to, you don't even really have to blink an eye at in order to go through, to go through them. And those are the games that you probably owned as a kid, or you owned in adulthood, and it was a game you obsessed over for a very long time. And those are probably the games that you are the most comfortable with, and that is definitely the case for me. Games like Ninja Gaiden, the Mega Man series, the early parts of the Mega Man series, Double Dragon 2, Super Mario Brothers, things like that, I am just extremely familiar with. Like, even if I don't play them for years, I can go back to them and still feel like I have never left the games and I've never stopped playing them. So that's kind of what Mega Man 1 is like for me. Although, admittedly, towards the end of the video, I was having some trouble on Wily's stage. But actually, you know, what's funny about that is, a part of that is that I was... This is actually kind of funny, you're probably not going to expect this, but I was actually testing out my FC game console system. And, the FC game console is a clone system, and it basically just plays 8-bit Nintendo games. I had just bought one a little while back for my, I had a 700 subscriber YouTube contest, and so I bought the FC game console for that contest. But I needed to test it out to make sure it worked, so I didn't ship it out to someone and then it was a dud or something like that. You know, I wanted to be able to return it back to the store if it didn't work, so... I was kind of killing two birds with one stone, or actually 3 birds with one stone, and I'll get into that in just a minute. But I wanted to do this long play, but I also wanted to test out the clone system. And so, I was using the clone system and the clone system controllers for this game. I wasn't using an original 8-bit Nintendo, and I was using really cheap, like these really cheap clone system controllers, and they weren't really all that responsive. Not as responsive as I remember them being in the past. I don't know if it was the specific controller I used. I didn't try swapping controllers because it does come with 2. But, so, that actually messed me up a couple times, especially on Dr. Wily's stage when the moving platforms appear again. It felt like the controller wasn't completely responsive, and I would press the button to jump, and it felt like there was a little bit of delay. It was kind of weird. And so... my deaths on Dr. Wily's stage, I kind of attribute to that a little bit. I'm not going to blame it entirely, but it's definitely something that, you know, it was definitely a factor, or something that should be factored in with that, so I just want to let you guys know that. But I say kill 3 birds with one stone because I wasn't just doing this long play just to do a long play and test out the system. Over at Atari Age in the Nintendo High Score Club, they were playing Mega Man. It's the start of the brand new NES High Score Club season over at Atari Age, and Mega Man was the very first game. So not only did I record the footage for a long play, and not only did I test out my clone system, but I also was able to submit a score for the NES High Score Club over at Atari Age. So 3 birds with one stone, got it all done in one swoop, got to submit a score, got to record this long play. Got to test out the clone system, which I will probably be mailing out soon after I do my 700 subscriber drawing for it. Which, of course, that's going to be in the past for anybody listening right now, but I'm basically recording this video probably a couple weeks before I actually upload it. So... now, this item right here is called the Magnet Beam, I believe, and it's an extremely useful weapon. Or not, it's not really a weapon, it's a tool. It's an item or a tool that you can use really to your advantage. And basically, it puts out temporary platforms. And they go all the way across the screen. They're there for a few seconds. Once you get on top of one, you can lay another one out. and you can just do a lot of cool stuff with it. And this is something that I really wish like they included in other Mega Man games. Like, yeah, they have like the power-ups in Mega Man 2 and other Mega Man games, but they usually just put out like tiny platforms. This thing goes all the way across the screen, and it is very cool. Definitely one thing I think that they should have brought back at least once in later Mega Man games, because it's so cool. It makes life a lot easier on certain stages, like those areas on ice, like on Iceman's level, and on a portion of Dr. Wily's stage where there's a lot of moving platforms. You can just use the magnet beam, and that's basically that. The end of story. Alright, so now we're on Fireman's stage, and as you can see there, I actually use Electman's weapon on Iceman, and the Robot Master boss weapons that work well against very specific bosses are awesome in this game. If you'll notice on Electman, I think I killed him in 1 hit with Cutman's weapon. In Iceman there, I believe I killed him in about 3 hits. So, if you don't feel like having a complete challenge for yourself, definitely play this game with the specific Robot Master weapons in order, and you'll be able to just plow right through the bosses. Now, here on Fireman's stage, I believe I use Iceman's weapon on him, and ironically, it doesn't actually do as much damage to Fireman as, say, Electman does on Iceman, or as Cutman does on Electman. But it definitely does more damage than your regular pea shooter, and so something to definitely consider if if you're having trouble with some of these bosses. Now, there's something I kind of wanted to touch up on, actually just kind of came to my mind. A game I actually kind of forgot about recently, but it is the very first Mega Man for the original Game Boy. Now, what's interesting about that game is that it's sort of a hybrid of sorts. It's like Mega Man combined with Mega Man 2. Yeah, it's interesting. How the Game Boy Mega Man games typically worked up until the last one or the last couple. When you first started the game, you only got to choose from 4 Robot Masters. After that, you might have gone to like another special stage or something. But then it takes you back to the Robot Master selection screen, and instead of having the other couple of Mega Man 1 bosses, you had bosses from Mega Man 2. So you still fought 8 Robot Masters, as opposed to just 6 in this first Mega Man. But 4 of them were from Mega Man 1, the NES version, and 4 of them were from Mega Man 2, the NES version. It was really, really kind of interesting, and if you guys are fans of the 8-bit Nintendo Mega Mans and you haven't played the Game Boy ones, I highly recommend checking out the Game Boy ones. They are really, really good Mega Man games. They're a lot of fun to play. The screen size is really scrunched in a lot. It's everything kind of feels enclosed. What's the term for it? Claustrophobic. And but they still look great. They sound great. They play pretty well. They're very true to the 8-bit Nintendo ones. They look a lot like the 8-bit Nintendo ones. And it's that hybrid of Mega Man 1 combined with Mega Man 2 that makes them, or makes the first one really cool. So I highly recommend checking that out. Mega Man 2 on the Game Boy, the first 4 bosses are Mega Man 2 bosses, and the second 4 bosses are Mega Man 3 bosses, which, again, a cool hybrid of sorts. Now, Mega Man 3 and up, I'm not so sure about because I didn't really play the Game Boy ones of those. They're a little more difficult to come by than the first 2 Mega Man games. The first Mega Man on Game Boy is just ridiculously easy to find. It's like a $3 game if you can find it, so If you're a big fan of the original 8-bit Nintendo Mega Mans, definitely check out the ones on Game Boy. At least the first couple. I hear Mega Man 5 on Game Boy, I think it's part 5, is really good, and apparently it had completely brand new bosses just for that version. No regurgitated bosses from the old Mega Man games. It was basically a completely brand new game. So I've yet to play that, but I'd still like to play it. I'd like to check it out. But point is, if you want to check out some fun sort of hybrid Mega Man games, definitely check out the early Game Boy versions, especially the first one and the second one. But here we go, guys. Now we're on Dr. Wily's stage. This is his first level. And some of these levels, especially this one, is really based around using specific Robot Master weapons and abilities to get through the stages. So there I had to use Gutsman's weapon to get through that. And here I gotta use Fireman's weapon if I want to get through this part without getting hit. Now, you don't actually have to use Iceman's weapon here. It just makes it a little bit easier. If you actually time yourself right, you can sort of jump over the flames, and you gotta really time it right. You gotta have it to where your body is, or the system still has your body registered as being on the platform, but you're basically in like that little hall. What I'm saying probably doesn't make sense, but you can jump up that sort of flaming platform area without using Iceman's weapon. It's just really difficult, and I don't really recommend doing it. I'd suggest just using Iceman's weapon to get through it. It'll just make life a little bit easier. So, and again, we switch back to Gutsman's weapon to get through these blocks. And then as we fall down here shortly, I'll be using the magnet beam again, just like I did on Iceman's stage, and of course it makes life a good bit easier. And right here, I recommend taking your time, because one quirk that should really be noted in this game is if you touch a spike at any time, you die in one hit. Anytime. Even if you got hit by an enemy and you are blinking, you still die if you touch a spike. And this is the only Mega Man game where that happens, as far as I know. So that's a quirk that you really want to be careful about in this game. The spikes are the worst kind of enemy you can touch in this game. They're not really enemies, but you know what I mean. You don't want to touch the spikes. Don't touch the spikes. They're bad. Spikes equal bad in this game. They equal bad in other Mega Man games too, but if you get hit and you touch them, you can actually walk on them for a second or two and get back to safety. And this one, you can't. You get hit, you're blinking, you touch a spike afterwards, you're dead. You touch a spike without being blinking after getting hit, you're still dead. It's, you know, don't touch the spikes, they're bad. So, in certain situations, you really want to be careful. You really want to be careful to make sure you don't touch them at all costs, even if you get hit by an enemy and you're tossed down into them. Alright, so this is, I don't remember his name. Actually, I probably do, but I'm gonna get it wrong, or, no, never mind. I think this guy is called the Yellow Devil. I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong, but he's a recurring character in several of the Mega Man games. He's in Mega Man 3. Was not in Mega Man 2 as far as I know. Well, not as far as I know. He definitely wasn't in Mega Man 2. And I don't think he was in any of the other 8-bit Nintendo Mega Man games, but he came back in form in Mega Man 8 for the PlayStation and Saturn. I think he might have come back in Mega Man 7 as well. I don't recall at this point. It's been a really long time since I played that one. That was a Super Nintendo game, by the way. But he's kind of tricky. He basically splits himself off and moves over to the other side of the screen. What I recommend doing is basically just standing in one spot and just jumping straight up. There is a very specific section where a block comes from his back leg and then it comes from his knee. At that point, you can actually jump over both of those blocks in one swoop. So if you just watch what I do, I have sort of a pattern to it. And there will be a point where I jump over two of his moving blocks at once, and you can clear them without a problem so long as you time it right. And if you're having a problem with that boss, just watch my pattern. Hell, take it into, download it and take it into some video program and slow it down if you need to. And just study the pattern and then just, you know, go from there. As far as I know, you have to use Elecman's weapon on him. Don't quote me on that though. It's been a while since I've tried any other Robot Master weapon on him, or really had a need to. But if you get to him for the first time, you might run out of ammo, and you know, you might have to try to experiment with some other Robot Master weapons on him. And if you have to do that, actually, tell me about that, and tell me if anything else works. But I'm pretty sure only Electman's weapon works. So, all right, and this is where we start fighting some of the old Robot Masters over again. And this game does it again a little bit differently than some of the other Mega Man games. Starting with Mega Man 2, which actually kind of like became like the signature formula for the game. In Dr. Wily's stage, there was a point where you had to fight all of them again in one swoop. You got basically teleported to a room, and you had to fight all of them, you know, one after another in this one room. In this game, they actually sort of space it out. You have to fight 2 of them on this Wily stage, and then you have to fight the other 4 on the final Dr. Wily stage. So that's kind of interesting. Another thing that's a little bit different is that when they die, they don't give you any health or anything. So you've got to be a little more careful and a little more attentive when you fight these guys again. And this is something that I kind of wish they did again in later Mega Man games. It made things a little, it spiced things up. Whereas the whole fight all the Robot Masters again in later Mega Man games got really stale. Especially by the time you got to Mega Man 5 and 6, it was just like, ugh, again? I mean, they were just kind of like copying the same formula over and over and over again without anything new. So it's like they could have really gone back to basics like this and kind of spiced things up a bit. But again, that's one of the reasons why the first Mega Man game is still great, and it's still fresh compared to the other games in the series. Because it does things like that. It does things differently. Now, it wasn't really quote-unquote different when it came out, because it was the first game of the series. I mean, it was unique, naturally, compared to other games at the time. But, you know, Capcom basically hit their stride with Mega Man 2, and they just repeated that formula for the rest of the series. Now, Mega Man 3 was actually a nice mix-up, because after you finished the original 8 Mega Man 3 Robot Masters, you had to revisit 4 of the stages, each stage housing 2 Mega Man 2 bosses that are actually a lot more difficult than they were in Mega Man 2. That was really cool, and something like that is something they should have done again in the future, but from Mega Man 4 through 6, they just regurgitated the same formula as Mega Man 2, which was arguably probably the most successful Mega Man game of the original 6. It's the one that fans of the series and just gamers from that time period reminisce about the most. It's the one that they remember the most, because it was the most popular. Mega Man 3 is probably a close second for that. But Mega Man 2 is definitely the one that people remember the most. And, you know, so the later Mega Man games, they just copied that formula to a T. Unfortunately, none of them really did that formula nearly as well as Mega Man 2. And it was stale at the same time. It was like they didn't really introduce anything new in terms of just the level or the game structure. Like fight 8 Robot Masters, then go to Dr. Wily's stage, and that was basically it. It was just like, they might have thrown in, like Mega Man 4, there was Dr. Cossack's castle, and then you go to Dr. Wily's castle. In Mega Man 5, you have to go to Proto Man's castle, and then you find out Proto Man's fake, and then you go to Dr. Wily's castle. And then in Mega Man 6, you go to Dr. X's castle, and then you go to Dr. Wily's. It's just like, same thing again and again, without really changing up the whole structure of things. And then fighting the same 8 Robot Masters again at the end of the Dr. Wily stage. So, yeah, kind of went on a little tangent there, but we're almost towards the end of the game, guys. This is the third Dr. Wily stage, probably the easiest of the 3, in my opinion. You got a bunch of little enemies here that just kind of spices things up a little bit. You know, you got to be careful, otherwise you might get hit. But for the most part, if you time it right, you can just kind of skip through enemies. Now, this part's kind of cool. I don't think this occurs again in any other Mega Man game, but I'm assuming this is water or ice or something. And basically, it doesn't let you move to the left. It's constantly pushing you to the right. Now, if you run to the right, you go really, really fast. And what's kind of fun is trying to blaze through this section. But what you can also do is just do what I do, and I'm just sitting here and I'm just firing And it's basically very safe to just take your time here, keep firing, and you won't get hit at all. Alright, now we're at the boss. Now this boss, he comes out of 3 of those pipes, basically. And Gutsman is actually works best on him. You can pick up those blocks, you can kill those blobs or those bubbles in one hit. Every time you kill a bubble, though, another one comes out, and it gets a little bit quicker, etc. What I do in this video is actually, I kill the first few with my, my standard plasma shot. And then as the last couple appear, I use Gutsman's weapon on them to just kill them in one hit. Because again, they're faster, they're a little more challenging to dodge. And in my case, I don't usually actually dodge them. Because the cool thing about some of these Mega Man games is, like, you don't have to always dodge. Sometimes, so long as you're doing more damage to them than they are to you, you can just tank. You can just be a tank. You can take the damage. So long as, you know, you're hitting them, you're being accurate, you can just be a tank. Because it doesn't matter if you get hurt. When you start a brand new stage, your health bar is filled from the top. So, and that's basically that. So here we are. This is the very final Dr. Wily stage, and this is the one where I die. I think I die at least twice. I think it's twice. Maybe. But I definitely die the first time here. And I think I actually die once at Wily himself, because by the time I got to him... Actually, you know what? I think I die once on the moving platform section. I die once at the Robot Masters, because once I get there I don't have enough health. Or not really so much that I don't have enough health, it's just that... Yeah, I just die at them. And then, when I get to Dr. Wily for the first time, I die there as well, because by the time I get to him, I didn't have enough health to beat him without getting hit, so... Yep, 3 deaths in this one part, so this is, this whole level accounts for all of my deaths in this entire playthrough. So all in all, I don't think this was a bad playthrough at all, except for this last stage. It was actually kind of disappointed by the time I got here, because I had such a good run, and I was like, by the time I died, I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna keep going. No shame, so long as I finish the game and I'm able to do this video. And, yeah. And, you know, you can play it risky here, but what I actually recommend doing is just using the magnet beam, which is what I do the second time I get here. But the problem is, I missed the platform. Right there, I missed it. So, you're better off just using the magnet beam and just beaming your way through. So, yeah, lesson learned. Right? Alright, now we got this little power up here. It's a little star. To be honest with you, I don't remember what it's called anymore. I used to know the name for it. But it's sort of it was a signature Capcom little item that you can get in a lot of different Capcom games. Usually it was just points. In this game, it actually gives you all of your ammunition back. So it's definitely something good to pick up here. That way you can use the correct Robot Master weapon against, well, each Robot Master. Now, I played really stupid here. I got hit on Bomb Man. Bomb Man's a really bad boss to lose life on because he's really not that difficult. But you know, whatever. I was just playing it a little risky. And then Fireman here, he's just a pain in the ass. He shoots out his flames, and then another flame appears on the ground, and it's just really difficult to dodge that. It's just I can't really predict that pattern too much, so it's just like, But it's just something to watch out for when you're fighting him. And I'm pretty sure Gutsman is the one I die at here. Yep. Which is a shame, because if I was able to beat him, then I would have at least been able to get to Wily, and then die, and then just start at Wily again, because you basically spawn right at Dr. Wily. And and what the hell was I doing on this part? I was trying to be slick, because when you shoot Fireman's weapon, a little flame circles around you as well. And that'll actually damage enemies. So I was trying to damage Bomb Man with that, and it was just really stupid. And of course, Fireman mostly kicks my ass, and so I'm left with not much life left to get through both Iceman and Gutsman. So, but I'm pretty sure I do it this time. It's just a shame that they don't drop any health in this one, like they do in Mega Man 2 and up. It definitely would have made life a little bit easier, but again, one of the cool things about this Mega Man is it's a little bit of a different kind of challenge than the other Mega Man games, which is welcome in my opinion. So here we go, we're right basically at Dr. Wily, and I'm going to die, and then I'm going to go ahead and try it again, and I think I beat him on the next try. So, the first form on Dr. Wily, basically all you have to do, you can just keep pummeling him with just your regular P-shot. The other form, it's, you know, you can easy Lek Man. What I do on this one, though, is I believe I just use Cut Man. And if you time it right, you can actually hit him, I think, about 3 times with it. And there's no, like, or not much anyways, of, like, safety delay for him. So once you hit him, you can hit him again, and his life will just keep draining. Which is nice. I like that about this game. Some other Mega Man games aren't like that. You have to wait for their stun to go away. Which kind of changes the pacing a little bit. I like being able to just pummel them as quickly as I can. It makes it a little more arcade-like. And you can do that on Dr. Wily here, which is pretty cool. Now again, you do want to be a little careful because something I forgot to mention, if you've never played this game and you've only played other Mega Man games, you get no energy tanks here. So it's basically 1 health bar, so you've got to really be careful about it. And that's it, guys. We have basically finished the original Mega Man for the 8-bit Nintendo. I'd like to say, well, thanks for watching for one. If you have any other questions about this game, be sure to post some comments below. If you managed to watch it all the way through to this point, post a comment below, let me know. I'd like to know that you've actually watched all the way through to the end of my long play. And again, you know, if you have any feedback, questions, or anything like that, you know, just shoot them below. So again, this is the very first Mega Man for the 8-bit Nintendo. If you want sort of a twist on this game, again, I highly recommend checking out the very first Mega Man for the original Game Boy. Either do it through emulation, or you can get it, I believe, on the Nintendo 3DS Virtual Console shop now. Or you can just buy the cartridge extremely cheap, play it on an original Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, or a Super Game Boy on a Super Nintendo, or a GameCube with a Game Boy player. There's so many different ways to try to experience that game, so I definitely recommend checking that out if this game appeals to you. So, with that, I don't really have any other comments, guys. I'm just going to close this out with watch out for a Mega Man 6 long play very shortly. And after that, that basically wraps up every single Mega Man long play for the 8-bit Nintendo. I've finally, after about a year and a half's worth of time, gotten all 6 of them done. So, just watch out for the Mega Man 6 one in the future, and then that'll be it. Maybe I'll start testing the waters with some of the Game Boy ones, but I'll have to actually obtain some of those and some hardware to play those on. So... But with that, guys, I want to say thanks for watching. If you're new to my channel, feel free to subscribe. I've always got more long plays on the horizon. I've got lots of casual reviews, and I've got more sort of serious reviews as well. So definitely subscribe and, you know, keep in touch and keep up to date with whatever I'm doing. So, and until next time, guys, I want to say, well, take it easy.